I'm getting the same question. Should I buy on Johns Island or should I buy in Mount Pleasant? I'm Natasha, local real estate agent here in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, coming to you with all things Charleston real estate and what it's like to live here. So let's jump right in. So it isn't about which area is better, it's about which area fits your priorities. And by the end of this video, you will have the answer to that question. If your goal is maximizing your house for your money, then Johns Island is going to have newer construction for the square footage, and the prices are going to be a little bit more palatable than Mount Pleasant. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the better option. Mount Pleasant is known by and large for location and amenities, and that is what buyers are looking for when they are considering that area over Johns Island. Johns Island has seen significant growth both in residential sectors and commercial sectors over the past few years. So we're seeing a really swift rate of appreciation despite how long it's taking homes to sell in the current market. There has been some strong growth in the Johns Island area. We have seen similar growth in Mount Pleasant, specifically through the COVID years, but that appreciation has stayed and we've still seen a slow but steady growth. Now, Mount Pleasant is a little bit more developed, and so while Johns Island is still getting more amenities, commercial spaces, restaurants, things like that, Mount Pleasant really has those amenities and points of interest already established. So Johns Island is feeling a little bit more rural and in the development cycle, whereas Mount Pleasant, again, is already through that main years of growth. All right, let's talk about traffic. So if you speak to a local, you are going to get very strong opinions about traffic. And I sort of laugh at this because I get a lot of clients that are moving in from bigger metros, Boston, New York City, Chicago, DC. And so for those folks, the traffic is very palatable here. But for folks that have lived here for a long time, they certainly have opinions about the traffic. So what is worse in terms of traffic between Mount Pleasant and Johns Island? It's really going to come down to who you ask. So in Mount Pleasant, the Highway 17 corridor can get very congested during commuting times and during when school is starting and letting out. Johns Island is going to feel similar, but I would say that the traffic is going to feel a little bit more congested just because in Mount Pleasant, there are more thoroughfares to get around Highway 17. In Johns Island, it's a little bit more difficult because there really is only two ways onto the island, two ways off. Now, infrastructure projects are in place to help mitigate the traffic on Johns Island, but you certainly feel it, in my opinion, a little bit more during high commuting hours. And that's not to say that you don't feel it in Mount Pleasant. I just think that there are more ways to move around the town of Mount Pleasant with a little bit more ease than I would say on Johns Island. Okay, let's talk about proximity to the beaches. So if you're in Mount Pleasant, you're likely going to go to Isle of Palms or Sullivan's Island beaches. And I would say the ease of getting to the beach is relatively easy and simple. You will sit in traffic during the summertime if you're going through those peak times where people are trying to get to the beach. I would say 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Johns Island, you're gonna feel like the distance to the beach is similar. It might just take a little bit longer because you're likely gonna go to Kiowa. You might go to Folly Beach as well, but I think that the congestion might feel a little bit stronger during the commuting times to the beach, but you're headed to the beach, right? So either plan ahead and get in the car early, or just know that you're gonna be sitting in a little bit of traffic, but it'll certainly be worth the wait. One of the less glamorous things that we need to talk about is home insurance. And that is not just a homeowner's policy. Here, when you're moving to the Charleston area, you need to consider flood insurance, wind and hail coverage, and a hurricane policy. We call that named storm. So those things are very important, and they're going to widely differ depending on the area you select. So both Mount Pleasant and Johns Island will have areas that have flood zones. You can look for what's called Flood Zone X, and that means that a lender does not require flood insurance. So you could assume that that is higher ground, but In my opinion, I think it's important to have flood insurance on your property, whether it's in flood zone X or a flood zone that is more prone to flooding. Now, when you think about Johns Island and Mount Pleasant, it is not an apples to apples comparison. We're going to drill down specifically to even neighborhood, street, even section of the street. So this one, it's really important to partner with a professional on and maybe get some insurance quotes if you find a neighborhood or area that you like, so that you have an idea of what you're getting into, because it's not just a homeowner's policy. We have flood and we have all of these other considerations to make when we think about what it costs to live in this area. Let's drill down a little bit more specifically into lifestyle for Johns Island versus Mount Pleasant. In Mount Pleasant, you do have more established commercial, retail, medical complexes, and there's just a more established feel. That's attractive to some people, but many people prefer Johns Island over Mount Pleasant because it is a little bit more rural feeling. There are, I would say, more green spaces and trees. There is maybe a little bit of a different feel in terms of outdoor recreation and lifestyle. So while a lot of commercial is still coming to Johns Island, you're choosing an area that is quickly being developed, but has, I think, quite a ways to go. And you're comparing that to Mount Pleasant that has a lot of these amenities already established, but might feel too cookie cutter for some people. So it really comes down to personal preference, and touring both areas will be the best strategy so that you can get a feel for both. Okay, new construction. So Mount Pleasant has kind of seen its peak of new construction, and now we're just seeing infill communities, meaning smaller communities or smaller acreage being developed with 5 to 20 homes. So the larger master planned community development in Mount Pleasant is for the most part finished. On Johns Island, we're still seeing more community development, more residential and new construction opportunities. So if that's something that's important to you, you want a brand new home, you want to have the peace of mind of a builder warranty, and your major mechanicals like HVAC and roofs being brand new, then Johns Island's gonna have more offerings for you. And the price points are going to be better than Mount Pleasant. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about price. So all things considered, let's say you have a $600,000 home on Johns Island compared to a $600,000 home in Mount Pleasant. They are not going to be equal. So the $600,000 home in Mount Pleasant will likely have older mechanical systems, probably need repairs, and likely be needing some sort of renovation to kitchens and bathrooms. Now, Johns Island, that same amount is going to get you a little bit newer, a little bit further, and a little bit more square footage. So when you think about price, think about the home itself and what you're willing to take on in terms of home maintenance. Johns Island is going to set you up for success if you are looking for a home that doesn't need as much work. Mount Pleasant is great if you're looking for location and nearby amenities, but you might have to put some elbow grease in. I've sort of alluded to the character of both places, but let's break it down a little bit more. So Mount Pleasant is going to feel suburban. It's going to feel like there are more sidewalks, a lot more commercial. Johns Island's going to have more natural character. So more oak trees, more green spaces, a little bit less developed feeling. So both of those can appeal to different types of people and where you are on your journey. Both are fantastic, so it really comes down to what's important to you. Basically, if you like established conveniences, maybe a shorter drive to the beach and a more suburban feel, Mount Pleasant might align with your goals more specifically. If you're looking for a little more rural, open to a community that is continuing to grow, and you're open to kind of working through the pain points of infrastructure as it's being developed, and a little bit easier on the pocketbook, Johns Island might be the fit for you. If you want to learn more about both communities or other communities in our area, please send me a message or put a comment below. I would love to help. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.